Tennessee win against Alabama. You said it was going to happen. You said a week in advance it was going to happen. You saw it. So how does that affect your thoughts on Tennessee's football team, the season moving forward, and what the potential could be here for the Vols?
Well, it really doesn't change a lot for me. I thought Tennessee was Georgia's biggest threat going into the season. I did not think that they would be this much of a machine, but clearly they have something cooking that is almost impossible to stop. And I said this on HQ after the game, that if you let Tennessee play Tennessee football, you're going to lose. So I think moving forward, how many teams can actually do that? Well, Georgia, and that's the end of the list, until they get to the SEC championship game. So I think that Tennessee right now, it's not just a flash in the pan. I think what we've seen is that Josh Heupel's system works, and it works at an elite level. And Tennessee's got the players that, fit exactly what he wants to do. And, it's scary because their best wide receiver didn't play last week, and Jalen Hyatt still scored 5 touchdowns. So I can't imagine what's going to happen when Cedric Tillman gets back.
What do you think about Kentucky at this point of the season? I mean, I know a lot of people talked about Kentucky possibly being the second best team in the East, and Will Levis is thought to be a first-round pick. Some folks say that he may be the first overall pick. They have some weapons on the outside, but what do you think about Kentucky?
Yeah, to me, it's just not a normal Kentucky team. Last week, Chris Rodriguez, that was essentially his first big game, his only big game. So, I think generally speaking, they have to have Will Levis be a star, and they have to have multiple receivers step up. Dankey's been good. Davian Robinson's been okay. But they just don't necessarily have the right recipe that Kentucky needs to have, especially in the trenches. So I think it's a good team, probably good enough to go to a traditional Florida Bowl. But anything beyond that, I just don't see it. To me, I think, that's a 8-4 type team. That's probably where they're going to end up, 7-5 maybe. So I don't think Tennessee will have any issue with them next week. But, I think the one thing about Kentucky is that they always seem to jump up and scare somebody. I don't think it's going to happen with Tennessee, but, it's a possibility that's out there always with that team.
Barrett Sallee is with us from CBSSports.com. Barrett, what is the latest with the Heisman race? Where do things stand, do you think, entering the final month of the season?
Well, I still think C.J. Stroud is the front runner. I know we all kind of got, caught up in the Hendon Hooker stuff last week, but Ohio State didn't play. So I think that's part of it. I would have Hendon number 2. I think he deserves it. And beyond that, I think it's a pretty big gap down to, whoever you want to put down in there. I mean, Bryce Young was awesome against Tennessee, but he also, missed a game and a half. That does matter in a race like that. So to me, I just think that it's those two and then a drop-off to a big group that features, Max Duggan, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I don't think there's a Georgia player that can fit that bill. So it's just – I think there needs to be a different, player, different storyline set up to really match what Hooker and what C.J. Stroud are doing right now.
A couple weeks ago, you felt like C.J. Stroud was pretty much on a level by himself, tier 1. Do you feel the same way, or do you feel like Hendon now has put himself on the same level as C.J. Stroud, considering that he has beaten some quality teams, something that Ohio State haven't been able to do?
Yeah, I mean, Hendon's there now. I think right now, we could sit here and talk about Hendon's, success against teams that are pretty good. But, you have to see it on an extremely high level, and we've seen that. And you're right, CJ hasn't really played a lot of, tough competition, but he's still CJ Stroud. He's still doing things that, are things that a Heisman Trophy caliber quarterback does. But now Hendon's done it against Alabama on a big stage, made the waves that he needs to make to jump into that conversation. He's leading his team to, success, perhaps the ultimate success. So, I'd say he's done absolutely enough. And if you want to put Hendon number one, I'm totally fine with that. If you want to put CJ number one, I'm fine with that too. Anybody else, I would have something to say.
Barrett Sallee, CBSSports.com, is with us. What would you say is going to happen between LSU and Ole Miss? That's the 3:30 CBS game this weekend.
Well, the wrong team's favored. I think maybe we're putting too much emphasis on Ole Miss's defense against Auburn and how poorly it played, and too much emphasis on Jaden Daniels and how good he played against Florida. I think that, the one thing that Ole Miss does defensively better than anything is create chaos. It leads the SEC in tackles per loss per game. And part of the reason Jaden Daniels had that success on the ground last week, scoring 3 touchdowns, is because his offensive line sucked. And he had to get out of the pocket and move. So, I think right now it's just one of those things from a matchup perspective. I don't necessarily buy what some people are selling. I do think Ole Miss is going to turn this into a shootout. And, LSU is just not built to do that. They're not built to get into a game like that. And so, no one's been able to stop Ole Miss's rushing attack yet. And I don't see that happening this week with LSU.
Do you feel like instant replay is ruining the game? Brian Kelly suggested that.
No, I think it's great for the game. I think that if there's a way to streamline it better, I'd be fine with that. I think that I'm not saying Tennessee and Alabama is an example of this. I think the way games are officiated, it does lend itself to more replays than are required. If we're going to sit here and nitpick on a ball that might have touched the ground with, a lace and take a 5-minute review, then the answers are obvious. Like, there is no answer. It's, it should be, held up, every single time. So I don't think replays are ruining the game. I think it helps the game, but I think sometimes we're administering it improperly and it's being maybe overused.
Barrett, anything else of note to pay attention to, would you say, among the top 10 unbeaten teams? Ohio State's a huge favorite against Iowa. Clemson, Syracuse, 2 top 15 teams going up against each other, and then 2 top 10 teams in the Pac-12. Anything among those games stand out that's most interesting?
Yeah, I'm really excited about Oregon and UCLA because, ever since the Georgia game, Oregon's a different team, man. They are awesome right now. And UCLA wins the battle in the trenches on both sides. They've got a great 1-2 punch with Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Zach Charbonnet. And, I think by and large, they're a more complete team than Oregon, but it's in Austin, and Oregon's won 22 straight games there. So I'm going to be fascinated to see what happens there because that game, I think, is flying under the radar, and it might be one of the best games of the weekend.
CBSSports.com is the website. You can read Barrett Sallee's work there. He mentioned CBS Sports HQ. That's a free stream for you, and making picks each week at sportsline.com. Barrett Sallee all over the place. We appreciate the time each Friday. Thank you, Barrett, and we'll check in with you again next week.
Thanks, y'all. Appreciate it.